everybody. I'm Debbie Moran. I'm the novice chair. And if you're new to HAS, we have a lot of talks about the basics of astronomy. And if there's, at this point, so many of them are recorded that if there's something you must know now before we get to it in 1 or 2 months or 3 months, we have a lot of recorded presentations on our website, and you just log in and go to recorded HAS presentations. And we probably have all the material needs as a new astronomer, navigating the sky, all the seasonal star talks for each season, what's up in the sky, all about telescopes, all about the then in-depth talks about each type of telescope, just about everything you need. But occasionally we break this up with a fun talk. And one of the things that Joe and Bram and the others are doing out there is astronomy travel, either to look at the sky, but also to visit observatories. And Bill Spitzeri has visited quite a few. So we've been, I don't know if we're running out of observatories, Bill, but he has not given this talk about the observatories at Haleakala in Hawaii, which I've not been to yet. And I love to hear Bill speak. He's one of our most curious members in the good sense of the word. He's always asking questions and really making everything interesting, finding out all the behind the scenes about everything he talks about. So Bill, will you please take it away?
Okay, I have not been to all of them yet. Don't challenge me. I'll do my best. Okay, so now I have to share my screen, right? So let me see if I can figure out a way to mess this up. And if I do this and hit the share button.
It's coming up. And I was just going to say, Bill, if folks have any questions that they want to ask you through the course of the conversation tonight, there's a chat feature within Zoom down at the bottom. Go ahead and ask your questions there. We'll keep track of those as the night progresses. And when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll go ahead and hit those questions one by one. Thank you.
Okay, as usual, I'm having a little problem here. I'll get to it.
So while we're waiting for the presentation to come up, anybody has any questions about anything that's going on in the backfield there, please come off mute and ask it. And then Bill, when you're ready to go, just let me know.
Oh, I'll definitely let you know. I'll definitely.
We did see it momentarily, Bill.
I know, I don't know.
Okay.
I've lost, okay. I'm sorry. Getting there.
While we're waiting, I don't know if you can see Bram over to the on the side over here setting up his 22-inch telescope. 20-inch. He's got a 20-inch telescope, right? 20-inch telescope. Will Young's telescope is behind. You can't really see it. We have another 20-inch telescope that belongs to Eddie Trevino. And I've got my 25-inch telescope there in the back. So it's a wonderful night. It's easy to get lost in the galaxies up there with those types of telescopes. So, all right, Bill, it looks like you're on.
Yes, except that I'm having a hard time. Okay, here we go. How about that? What a miracle. You know, 50 times is the charm or whatever it goes. Okay, so we're going to talk about, I assume you see the picture of the observatories and the fish and the flowers, right?
We do.
Okay, fine. So that, all right, we're going to talk about the observatories on the mountaintop in Hawaii. Some of you are maybe familiar with the observatories on the mountaintop in Hawaii. The mountaintop called Mauna Loa, which is on the big island of Hawaii. We're going to talk about a different mountaintop on the island of Maui called Haleakala, which, as the picture states, Haleakala is the Hawaiian word for the house of the sun. First, I'll mention how I got there. My son, Steve, and I were working and living in Chicago. He's a scuba diver, and he just one day said he decides he wants to go move to a tropical island, and he's going to move to Hawaii, and he didn't have a place to live or a job or anything. He just goes and moves to Hawaii. You know, kids, what can you say about him? So he moves to Hawaii, and he's scuba diving every other week, and he gets a job and a place to live, and he finds a girl and gets engaged. And he says there's a rainbow every morning, and he's scuba diving, and geez, you know, it sounds terrible, right? And so I feel sorry for him. So I got to go there, not for me, of course, to go to Hawaii, but to go cheer him up because life sounds so hard for him. So I go there. He's been there at this point for about a year and a half, so he knows the island inside and out. And he's been to Haleakala a few times, so he takes me up there. So that's how I got there. So he took me up there. So so here, let me see if I can. Well, okay, I don't think this is a problem. Okay, so you see these maps here, and first of all, the map on the bottom. You see where Hawaii is out in the middle of the Pacific. It's actually further west from where we are than El Paso and where Joe is right now. Believe it or not, there are places further west than El Paso. So that's where Maui and the mountain is. The map in the upper right-hand corner, I wanted to put that there because it has the map of Hawaii, excuse me, the flag of Hawaii, which has the Union Jack in it. When the Kingdom of Hawaii had a special relationship with the United Kingdom way back then, so they had the Union Jack in their flag, which I did not realize. And then in the map in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that we're not on the big island of Hawaii, we're on Maui, which is where it says the observatories are, and that's where Haleakala is, so that's where we're going to be. So here's a map of the island of Maui. You see the blue line leading all the way on the left to Lahaina, which is where my son was living. And then the blue line shows how we got from his home to the summit of the mountain. And because you're on an island with mountains and rainforest, nothing is in a straight line. And you go all these squiggly lines to get to the summit. And you start out at sea level and you end up at the summit of the mountain. And that's, 2 hours, as it states over there, under 2 hours to get from the town to the summit. And that's the route that we took. Oh, by the way, if you're not going to get it from my talk, go there. It's paradise, okay? It's a really nice place to go besides the observatories. I mentioned rainforest. This is what a large part of the island looks like, all right, rainforest. As a matter of fact, it's one of the wettest places on Earth, which you would think is not a great place to put an observatory, but you'll see how that works out later. There's places away from the summit with 400 inches of rain per year. So that's why it's a rainforest. It's incredibly beautiful. You don't want to live out in this wilderness, but it's a beautiful place to go hiking, etc. As long as you don't get attacked by whatever else lives out there. So that's what the island looks like. So we're traveling through some of this stuff to get to the summit. And I put this picture to show we stop at a restaurant on the way while we're still near the sea level. Not to show you this very fancy Rock and Brew restaurant, which apparently I was told was owned by some major rock star of some sort. I don't remember who it was. But to show you how we were dressed, shorts and t-shirts and sandals, okay? Down at sea level, all right? And then we're about halfway towards the summit at this point, again, still at sea level. And then maybe 30, 45 minutes later, we've traveled a ways and we're dressed like this. We had put on all the clothes that we had and it was barely enough. We're at, I think at this point, about 6,000 feet. And obviously it got a lot colder as you go up the mountain. And as you can see, it's a cloudy day. Compare that weather to what we saw Joe had out in West Texas a few minutes ago. And you would think that's not a good day to go to observatory, but you'll see how that changes. So we pulled over to the side of the road and took this break because, we didn't want to be late to the observatory, but as it turns out, we were making good time. We were very early, so we just pulled aside and put on all the clothes we had, and we were reading our books. We're at 6,000 feet. That's the view we had. You can see the ocean, you can see the island, and you can see a lot of clouds. So then we get back, after a while, we get back in our car, and if you've ever been on a commercial airliner, which you're going to have to do when you go to Maui, let's say it's a cloudy day, you take off from the airport, and in just a few minutes, you're going through the clouds, and then a few minutes later, you're above the clouds in blue sky. Well, on this day, we did that in our car. And as you saw a minute ago, we're underneath the clouds, and then we just keep driving up the mountain, and we're going through the clouds. Now, maybe some of you have done this. This was a first for me, and we're driving through the clouds like you would on an airplane. And then just, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later, we're at 8,000 feet, and they were nice enough to put these signs along the road, and we are no longer below the clouds. So that was encouraging as far as our viewing later that night goes. And so we were very, very happy about that. It's 8,000 feet. By the way, the summit's 10,000 feet, so we had a little ways to go yet at that point. And then we started to see this. Now, I showed you before the island's rainforest. A big area is covered with foliage of all manner. Now here at 9,000 feet, there's almost nothing growing. Scrub, small amount of bushes, and rock. And of course, all of the Hawaiian islands, including Maui, they're all volcanic islands. And so all the rock there is essentially volcanic rock, all of it. Obviously, some of it has deteriorated into soil. That's why things can grow, but it all started as volcanic rock. So you basically have volcanic rock and a small amount of bushes growing at 9,000 feet. Now, the only exception to that rule is this plant, and that is, it's called the silver sword. It's an endangered species. There's very few plants on the island. They only grow at very high altitude. I have seen a similar species up at the similar altitude on the big mountain on the big island, Mauna Loa, by those observatories on Mauna Loa, silver sword, and they don't want you to touch it because it's endangered. And it typically has a fence around it, and it's very strange looking, to be sure. If you get a close look up at those silvery looking leaves, they look like they're not they do look very silvery. And the scientific name is in the lower left-hand corner. I'll let you figure out how to pronounce that, okay? I have tried, and I hurt myself trying to say it. So that's one of the few things that grow at altitude there. So we kept going up. Again, you saw the sign, we're at 9,000 feet. So now we're getting close to the summit, and you start to see fairly conventional observatory domes and some that are not very conventional. And I'm going to try to describe as many of these as possible to you. I can't describe them all, and I'll tell you why later. But we eventually get all the way up to 10,000 feet. And there's proof. That's yours truly over there on the right. I just wanted to show my pictures so you didn't think, oh, you just got those pictures from the internet. I actually made it. And on the lower left-hand corner, you see, you see that weird building, which I'll describe later. And you see that little concrete block with the circle on it. And then in the middle, you see a close-up of that circle. All along the summit, they have those little markers from the geodesic surveys. And I thought that they pointed to maybe the ultimate summit, like the very highest point. Turns out there's a whole bunch of them up there, and they all point to each other. And they're there for triangulation purposes so that they can survey the summit to be very precise about it. As you can see, there's a date of 1966 on that one. And so they're just survey markers, and they're all over the summit. Anyway, so that's what's on the top. All right, So let's see what's next. Well, let's hit the button. All right. So as it says there, walk slowly at this elevation. That is, in my opinion, very good advice. First of all, it's all rocky. There's some walkways, but you got to be careful. And at 10,000 feet, the oxygen is, it's a very few and far between the breaths of oxygen. I could feel it, and I could definitely feel it. And so I had to go slow and be careful. I mean, there's stairways up there, very large stairways going from one part of the summit to another. And it was trying. So when you go up there, you got to be careful with that. The bluish picture in the middle is not a nebula. That is the water on the ground at the summit. So shorts and t-shirts at sea level, everything's frozen on the summit on that particular day. And, you know, that's what you get with altitude. So let's see, whoops, I turned one too many pages here. Let's see, so what's next? One moment, please. Okay, all right, so what's next? So there's many different levels of the summit, okay? Here we are at one section, and as I mentioned, this mountain, as well as all of the islands and all the mountains, are volcanic. This is a big volcano, and what you see here is the caldera, and I believe the main caldera of Mt Haleakala. Now, it's kind of hard to tell, but that caldera, where all the lava came out when this volcano was erupting, is about at least a mile away, if not more, maybe 2 miles. And it's at least a mile across. So this was a very significant volcano. And I think I've been told by people who know that there was actually more than one caldera, lava erupting from more than one location on this mountain, which it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Maui's a big island, so there was a lot of volcanic eruption in the past. But you can see the caldera, and fortunately, it is no longer considered an active volcano. Although, doggone it, if I was there and I saw a little bit of an eruption, I would have paid extra, as long as it, wasn't too serious, didn't keep us from going home. But it's not considered active. I don't even think it's considered dormant. I think it's considered, inactive, right? Volcano. So, but you can see into it as you see here from the visitor area. Also, you can see this. Well, everything is volcanic rock, but you can see what we call this porous pumice rock. So when the volcano is erupting, lava is coming out. There's a lot of gas in the lava. And if it solidifies, if it cools and solidifies with the gas in it, then there's bubbles of gas are trapped in the rock forever, if you will. And the rock just isn't to do that because there wouldn't be any left from all the tourists. But if you did, I have a piece of it from Alaska from the 1950s. This rock will float in water because of all the gas trapped inside. So that you can see that on the ground all over the summit of the mountain up there. So here's a view. Again, there's many mini summits, if you will, on top of the mountain. And if it wasn't for the road and the parking lot, this would look just like Mars. It's all this red rock, and that's just what it looks like. Again, as I mentioned, very little growing there. And that's, if you want to see what Mars looks like, there you go. Save yourself a trip, if you will. That's all that's up there. So, as I mentioned, we got there early. As you can see, it was long before sunset. We're right at the summit where the observatories are. You see the weird building in the middle, and when I will be describing that, you see many conventional domes. You see the building on the left, which is pretty obviously under construction. I will be describing that later. And by the way, we didn't just come up there cold, as where I had arranged with the local amateur astronomy club, who has this is their dark site. They have an area at 10,000 feet on this summit, which is their area with their observatories, and so they are very fortunate. And I contacted them ahead of time. I said, we're coming up. They said, doggone it, come on up. We'll show you around. We'll come up and we'll give you an evening on the summit. And of course, doggone it, they were extremely nice about it. And so we got up there early. And so we just had to wait for them. So we're sitting there. So now this is a view. Now, oh, here. Can anybody tell me, can you see my cursor in the upper right-hand corner? Okay, yeah. I see a thumbs up. All right. So that weird building, whoops, that weird building over here. All right. We're going to go to the next screen. Here's that weird building right over there. All right. Now, so that we're looking at that weird building from this road over here. All right. And so we know we're early. So we pull up our car kind of on this road over here, all right? And the road is blocked. So there's a gate and it's down. So we're just gonna wait for the amateur astronomers. We're gonna have to wait about an hour, and we know we're early. We're gonna wait for them, and we'll just wait for them until they come and they open the gate. And we figured that was innocent enough. And right where that gate is closed, we see the weird building. You see the picture of it on the left, and all these signs here, which, you know, should have been a clue of what was going on. And yeah, I'm a smart guy, but we figured it would be perfectly okay to sit there and wait. And how does the saying go? I was just sitting there. I wasn't doing nothing. And then a little while later, a couple of uniformed Air Force officers came out, and first of all, there was some voices on a speaker, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. I mean, they were trying to chase us away, and and I'm a genius, but I didn't get it. And uniformed officers came out and said, "Listen, guys, if you don't leave, we're going to have to call the MPs or something like that." And I didn't want to end up in the Maui prisons, which I've heard are brutal. And so we had to move our car away, and we moved away to be nice, and they just said that was fine. We moved away. And a little while later, so that's because this weird looking building over there is Department of Defense, as is the vast majority of all those domes you see on top of there. Department of Defense, which means they ain't looking at the planetary nebula. You know what I'm talking about? And so now I'm going to try to describe as much of this as I can. I did not come there at their invitation, and anyway, so that's what's going on over there, and that's why I almost ended up in prison. But all right, so we waited for the amateur astronomers, and they finally came. Let's see, where am I? Oh yeah, so the amateur astronomers showed up, opened up the gate, and here's some of them. And doggone it, these people were so nice. They came up to the summit just to show us around. The fellow on the left is showing an authentic Hawaiian sign, which means something, and I don't know what it means. I don't think that's a gang sign. I think it means it's a friendly something. The guy in the middle is named Rob. He was the fellow I kind of arranged everything with. I believe he was president of the Amateur Astronomy Club at the time. You see the sign there, Haleakala Amateur Astronomers. And by the way, as an aside, I met him again a few years later in Casper, Wyoming, when the total solar eclipse came through Casper, Wyoming in 2017. We just coincidentally ran into each other, and that was nice. We spent some time. And they were all such wonderful hosts coming up there, taking care of us. Apparently, they do tours up at the summit, which they can do for a price, but they never even mentioned that. They just gave me and my son a free night on the summit, and it was just wonderful. They were just a great bunch of people. So that's them. There's their logo of their tour group, I believe, Maui stargazing up in the upper left-hand corner. And there's a website for them. And this is a kind of an older view, but it's a fairly representative view of their quote, a dark site up on the summit. And everything you see there is theirs, except where it says Las Cumbres Observatory in the background, which I will describe in detail later. But everything else in the foreground is theirs. So you see in the center a silver dome, which they have a C14 on a 10,000-foot mountain. Not bad. And then they have several permanent piers, which I try to indicate there. They have all those buildings you see where they keep equipment. You know, they don't have to be carrying things up and down the mountain, which would be a drag. Well, both physically and spiritually a drag. And then they have the kitchens and bathrooms and storage and everything. And they're building new stuff as we speak. So they have a wonderful site up there. And this is just to give you a feeling of what a great dark site they have. Oh, and yeah, it is dark. Okay. The street lights, no. You think the Department of Defense would allow street lights up there? No, it's not happening. So that's what their place looks like. Oh, and this is in the daylight, of course. All right. This is another view, the amateur area in the front over here, and then you can see a plethora of domes in the background. Almost, I think all of those are Department of Defense. And I'm going to be describing some of them, but not all of them. Again, I didn't get an invitation. Here is back at this amateur area. There is their C14 Dome. And if you look on the left, kind of in shadow, they have one of those all sky cameras for, well, here, I got my cursor here. Here's their all sky camera for, meteor showers and such things, right? And you can see you got a big door on the C14 Dome. Here is a close-up of the C14 Dome, and the C14 was not mounted the time I was there, but you can see the significant door, looks like a bank vault on the C14 Dome, and on the left is the mount, a nice sturdy mount for the C14 Dome with the, the electronics, etc. So that's a very nice little setup that they have. Oh, here's a close-up of the all sky camera that they have. And if you look at the image on the right, the camera has shielding, has a kind of a door, an automated door with those two little panels that can, these two little panels here, which will move to the side when I guess the right button is pressed, so that the camera is exposed to the sky and it's covered by the dome. And great for meteor showers. And then here's just, miscellaneous views in the upper right-hand corner. You can see on one of those permanent piers, they put a C8 or something like that on there, or anything they want. Lower right-hand corner, one of their storage buildings. It's pretty large. They can put a lot of equipment in there. In the middle, they just have, the night we were there, they had some binoculars, fairly large binoculars. And on the left, on the bottom, lower left, they were building a new observatory. It was under construction. And inside of it, they were putting a concrete pier, and it's hard to tell how big that is, but I think it was about 5 or 6 feet high. I don't know what they were going to mount on that thing, but it wasn't another pair of binoculars. It was going to be a significant something. They have ambitious plans. This was a couple of years ago when I was there, and they have ambitious plans. They're growing still, shall we say, at their dark site. And so they have resources, shall we say, and they're ambitious folks. And well, they got a nice place, so I guess their feeling is they might as well use it. So I mentioned they got all those buildings over there, and here's inside the kitchen, and they have all these other rooms in there, and they have all these flags. And I was told a lot of these flags are from the people bringing flags from the states and countries from which they came, okay? And I didn't even know about that. I would have brought a flag. I felt bad I didn't bring one. I don't know if they would have enjoyed having they had already had a flag from Illinois, so doggone it, I couldn't have really added to that. But anyway, and many other, astro photos and things like that. And they got a kitchen with a microwave and a fridge. So I guess if they get stuck on the summit, they would be okay for a while. And if you look at in the upper left-hand corner, they have that orange circle, and you may know what that is. That's kind of like a Frisbee-like device, Frisbee-ish, and it's orange because it's a Celestron Frisbee, which I think would be one heck of a collector's item. I've never seen that before, but it's a nice astronomy item. And then he says, he's showing me their kitchen, and he says, oh, by the way, you want to see our bathroom? And I went, well, no, not particularly. I don't need to use it, and I don't need to see your bathroom. He said, no, you ought to go see our bathroom. Okay, I'll go see your bathroom. And I went in, and the nice part about their bathroom, it was their mirror in their bathroom. And this is what it looked like. It was this big hexagonal mirror, which of course was made to look just like the hexagonal mirror segments that they make the huge telescope mirrors, like in the Keck telescope, which was made out of, dozens of hexagonal mirror segments. Okay. So they just could have put up go to Bed Bath & Beyond and put any mirror in their bathroom, but no, they went to the effort of making a hexagonal mirror segment to be Keck-like in their dark side bathroom. And I thought that was a nice touch. It's not curved like in the Keck, but it was still a nice touch. I thought that was very nice. So that's just some of their infrastructure. And of course, then after a while, the sun went down, or started to go down, and we had beautiful sky at 10,000 feet. Frequently, you're above the clouds around there, and just by pure luck, and some of you may be familiar with this, as the sun was setting, you may be familiar with this. We were lucky enough to see a green flash, which is what happens sometimes, especially if you see the sun going down on the ocean. When the very edge of the limb disappears at the edge of the ocean, you see a flash of green light, which is just a little optical illusion, if you will, a trick of the optics of the sun. And we saw it that night. And that was just a nice little bonus, if you will. And I don't know how often they see that up there, but that was nice. Now, they showed us with their various telescopes that they set up for us several deep sky objects, but we weren't in a position to take any photographs or anything like that. And it was very nice of them to show them to us. There was nothing extraordinary, and I won't bore you with any of that, except for one thing. And it was something that I did not see through a telescope, but it was something that I had never seen before. And we were standing there just looking at the beautiful, the general night sky. And he said, oh, look over there. And what I saw was this, the Zodiacal Light, which I have never seen before. Maybe some of you have. It, of course, is, in case you don't know, it is the sunlight reflected in dust in the plane of the solar system, and it's mostly visible at certain seasons of the year. I have never seen it. Now, you've got to be in fairly dark sky to see it, and I've been in some dark sky, but I have never seen it before. And this is how it looked. It was extraordinary. When he said, look over there, I was stunned at how bright it was. This is not a photograph I took there, but pardon me, this is about how bright it looked. It was extraordinary. And so I just wanted to mention that. This is the kind of thing I guess you see in the super dark 10,000 foot at the right season. You can see the Zodiacal Light like this. So, hey, when we can travel again, go to Haleakala, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so next I want to get into the observatories, all those other observatories that we see besides the amateur astronomers. And I'll start with that bizarre looking thing that I showed you before. Yeah, it was the US Air Force. And I ain't never seen anything like this. I don't know if you have. There's so-called, not the Space Force, but it was a Air Force surveillance site and optical tracking and identification. Again, not doing astronomy as such, even though, as it states up there, they've discovered many asteroids because they are doing what it says there, electro-optical deep space surveillance, what they call deep space surveillance, in both visible and infrared. And what that really means is they're looking at for spacecraft, okay? And mostly near Earth spacecraft. Now, that's the purpose of this. You might say, well, how the heck does this thing work? Well, if you see, it has three of these silver segments, okay, and the brown segment on the bottom. And then it has these posts that go from the top edge all the way down to the bottom. And the posts are fatter on the top and they get skinnier toward the bottom. All right? Okay. So try to remember how that looks now. And I'll go to the next screen. And on the left, you can see how it works. Okay, so the three silver segments come down because the posts telescope, no pun intended, they telescope down and bring those silver segments down, and the telescope, which is inside this observatory, pokes out through a hole in the middle, which you can see in the picture on the right. And it is a significant telescope, this deep space surveillance. It's a 12-foot mirror, and it's made to look, as it says there, for tracking LEO, which is low Earth orbit objects and missiles, right? It's been there since 1969 with adaptive optics, and you may be familiar with adaptive optics. That means that the mirror adjusts itself according to the atmosphere, which I first heard about in the 1980s. Apparently, this may shock you, but the military had it before we heard about it. And as it says there, it slews 20 degrees per second. Now, a full moon is a half a degree. So this thing moves 40 full, wait a minute, let me get this right here. 20 degrees, 40 full moons per second. And I don't care how good your go-to telescope is, they can't do that, okay? And why? Because low Earth object spacecraft and missiles are moving too fast for your typical go-to telescope. For them to track those kind of objects, it has to slew very fast. So that's the kind of device we're talking about here. So you look at the picture on the right, you can see the 12-foot mirror. You can see the big hole in the top, which closes maybe, or I think it has to close somehow. Maybe that roof that is around the hole somehow closes like a camera iris. I do not know. And then you can see all those people on the floor who do get invitations to places like this, as opposed to me. And so that's what this strange looking building / observatory is. And it's kind of like the centerpiece on this on the summit, I guess. And that's why I had to move my car. All right. And so that's what that building is. All right. So let's see. A bunch of, this is the view from the amateur area towards lots of other domes, okay? And again, I can only talk about some of them. Here are some telescopes in those domes. These are all Air Force things. Now on the left, you can see that there's a single mount. If you look at my cursor, there's a single mount with two telescopes on it that are identical. They're both, pointed at the same place. They're each 1.2 meters. And they are also, this is all Department of Defense Air Force stuff. They're, again, not doing astronomy. They're looking at spacecraft, basically. And then on the right, there's another telescope, 1.6 meters, and it says they can observe both day and night. So they do what do you call it? Well, visible and infrared. And again, they're just different scopes, different techniques, and they're looking at spacecraft. Okay, now here's something that's also in that Department of Defense area, but I think they're not officially considered Department of Defense. These are so-called Pan-STAR telescopes. And specifically, these are the Pan-STAR prototypes. So maybe they were started by the Department of Defense and then they were used for astronomy later. I'm not exactly sure. But again, these are Pan-STARs 1 and 2. They were prototypes, and there's Pan-STAR telescopes, I believe, in other places around the world. And they got famous because they were these telescopes that look at extremely large pieces of the sky at any one time. To do these, they're like survey telescopes. So they look at they look at the large parts of the sky on any given night. Why do they do that? So they can find where things change from night to night. And they are also famous for using, as it states on the left, these gigapixel cameras. Again, you look at a large piece of the sky with special cameras that can look at a large piece of the sky, so they can see when things change from night to night. And these have been up there since 2007. So there's been a lot of other Pan-STAR telescopes, and these are prototypes. So that's something else that is up there. Here is in another one of those observatory domes, the so-called Atlas telescope. Now, this isn't military as such. This is run by the University of Hawaii and NASA, been up there for several years, and it's an Atlas telescope. And its job is to give us early warning for asteroid impact problems, okay? It's a 1/2 meter mirror. It looks at a 7.4 degree field, and just does 30-second exposures, scans the whole, I can't see here, let's see. Okay, scans the whole sky twice a night. Again, looking for things that change in the sky, looking for asteroids that are possible problems. And they can scan down the 20th magnitude, which is not, the dimmest object in the sky, but this way they can scan the whole sky twice a night. And so again, they're looking for something that, they don't need to see something at the distance of Pluto. They need to see stuff that's closer. So 20th magnitude is good enough. Now there's a second Atlas telescope on the big island of Hawaii on the mountain called Mauna Loa that works with this telescope, again, to scan the sky for asteroid impact early warning. And I was really surprised to hear that because there's not much on Mauna Loa, because Mauna Loa had a major eruption in the 1980s. And I was surprised that someone would put a telescope there, but apparently they did. I did research on it and they said it's there. I didn't see it myself, but they say it's there. So this is what they do. They're looking for possible meteor impact problems. Asteroid impact problems. And they have been, as you see in the blue on the bottom there, they've been fairly successful, discovered many near-Earth asteroids, potentially hazardous asteroids, discovered 57 comets, and over 7,000 supernovae. So they're busy. When you see big pieces of the sky like that, they discover many things. They're very busy and they're very successful. So now, here's something else up out there on the summit. If you recall, you look in the lower left-hand corner, that's the structure that was under construction when I was there. And if the big picture on the right is the way it looks like now, and it's the Daniel Inouye Solar Telescope, okay? Daniel Inouye, by the way, was the US Senator from Hawaii practically forever. This is the biggest solar telescope in the world. It has a 4-meter mirror, And the mirror was made by this company Schott in Germany. It's 3 inches thick, and it's made of this so-called low expansion glass called Zero Dur. And low expansion glass is important because when you have a big piece of glass like this, as a telescope mirror, when it changes temperature, when it's, it's cool at night and then the sun heat warms it up, when it changes temperature, it can change shape. And when a telescope mirror changes shape, that means it's going to affect its focus, and that's no good for a telescope mirror. So they put chemicals in the glass that prevent it from changing shape, and that's good. So that when it changes temperature, it retains its proper focus, and so it's a better telescope mirror, right? And by the way, those 2 small domes that you see next to it, I believe, are those 2 Pan-STARRS prototype telescopes, just as an aside. And by the way, when they shipped the mirror from Germany to this observatory a couple of years ago, the mirror was not coated with aluminum, as you have to do for a telescope mirror. So the Air Force was kind enough, or maybe they did it for a price, I don't know how that works, but the Air Force has facilities on the summit to coat mirrors with aluminum. So they shipped the mirror uncoated to the summit, the Air Force coated it, and then they just had to move it from one part of the summit to the Solar Telescope Observatory and then put it in the telescope. And the Air Force has that facility because anytime you put a big observatory on top of a mountain, you really have to have that facility. You can't be shipping your mirrors up and down, and you certainly don't want to ship it back to Germany or even back down to the bottom of the mountain to get it recoated and ship it back up. I mean, the risk to your mirror would be terrible. And the Air Force doesn't want to ship anything that belongs to them to anybody else because of the security issues. So they have the facilities, even places like Mount Palomar and the Keck observatories, they have their own mirror coating facilities also. So that's how the Inouye telescope got their mirror coated. And this is such a powerful solar telescope that, as it states there on the left, they can resolve objects on the surface of the sun that are only 15.5 miles across. So it is the most powerful solar telescope in the world, and I'm going to guess will remain that way for quite some time. So that was quite a powerful thing to see over there. Here in these pictures, you can see some close-up views of that mirror. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see some of the people who work with that mirror looking very proud of their accomplishment. You can get a feeling for how big that mirror is. 4 meters across. What's 4 meters? 13, 14 feet across, something like that. On the left-hand side, you see another view of that mirror, and you get a feeling for the curvature in the mirror, which is slight but significant that you got to have in a telescope mirror. You can see the curve because of the image of the orange and yellow person there. You can see how the mirror is curved. And in the lower right, you can see the bottom side of the mirror as it's mounted in the telescope, and all that, the cables and the electronics underneath the mirror is for the adaptive optics in the mirror, which is what they use to wiggle the mirror based on how they detect the atmosphere is wiggling, so that they wiggle the mirror according to how the atmosphere wiggles, so that they get a much, much better image. And when I first heard about that stuff in the 1980s, I took money out of my pocket. And when I heard about the people saying they were going to do that, in a big observatory somewhere, I said, forget about it. That ain't going to work. You can't. How can you wiggle a mirror based on how the atmosphere wiggles? And nobody would take my money. And God, I'm so glad they didn't take my money, because it works so good. It's amazing how the adaptive optics work. Anyway, so I'm sure they're going to get great images from that solar telescope. Let's see. The next observatory I want to show you is the last one. how am I doing for time? I think I'm okay. This is that Los Combres Observatory, which was in the background of the amateur site, right? And okay, Los Combres Observatory. And on the left, you can see the dome, a clamshell design, which I had never seen before. And on the left, it's closed. On the right, it's open. It has a large reflecting telescope in it. And so that's what it looks like when it's open. It is, this is not the Department of Defense. It's an educational organization, nonprofit science education institute. It is completely automated. I suppose, as far as I know, no one ever goes into it except maybe to do repairs. I don't think it ever repairs itself. Totally operated remotely and totally for the purpose to be used by students. And it says there to observe transient events. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's the documentation. That's what the documentation states. And when I was on the summit, we were sitting there setting up all things in the amateur area, and all of a sudden the things started to open up and frightened me at first. But anyway, that's what it is. Here's a view of the telescope inside. The observatory is called Las Cumbres. The telescope is called the Fulques Telescope North, because there's actually several of these observatories. It's got a 2-meter mirror, F10 Richie Cretan design. It's called Fulques because it is funded by the Dill Fulques Educational Trust. As you can see, it has one heck of a sturdy mount. On the right-hand picture, you see a person. You get a feeling for the size of the affair. This big square black is a covering for the primary mirror. The primary mirror on the left, you can see, is this big blue object over here. And here's the secondary mirror up at the top. And again, well, you'll see, well, let's see. So you know, here's the primary mirror and here's the secondary mirror, all right? Okay. And here's a map. And on this map, you can see all these colored dots show many, I don't know if it shows all of the locations where there are other Las Cumbres observatories. There are several. Here's the map out in the Pacific. That's the one on Maui. There are two, I'm told, at the McDonald Observatory in Texas. And there's in South Africa and Spain and Australia. And then here's a list in the blue writing here of many of them, but not all of them. And so it is a tremendous, this foundation in the Institute is tremendous. And it's all for students. And as you can see on the left in the green writing, they do internships that are free. And the first time I gave this presentation, if you would have got in by February of this year, a couple months ago, you could have gotten into this year's internship program. It's 6 weeks, 35 hours a week. And but you know, if you're interested, I think it's for young folks. Maybe they do it every year. I suppose if you get on the internet, you can find out if they're doing it next year. I don't know. But it sounds like an amazing program, and you get to use these observatories to do this astronomy internship. And hopefully they continue to do it. And I thought that was darn interesting. I mean, there's so much invested in these observatories, I wouldn't be at all surprised to find out that they're still doing that. So now, the last thing I wanted to tell you is, before we get to, I have a short 3-minute video at the end, but the last thing I want to tell you is that totally by coincidence, and some of you may have seen this, the most recent issue of the Reflector magazine from the Astronomical League, the March issue, had 2 separate articles that talked about the astronomy on Haleakala. Let's see, what was it on page, let's see, on page 13, what you see on the right in this image one of the amateur astronomers from that amateur astronomy club talked about viewing the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in December from the summit. And if you look at that picture on the right, you see their C14 Dome and the Las Cumbres Observatory on the left. And she just had that small article there about making that observation of the Jupiter and Saturn. And then on another page later on, let's see, page 24, a fellow wrote an article about how he was a site survey engineer for the Daniel Inouye Solar Telescope that we already discussed on on Haleakala. So you can read about that in the Reflector if you get that magazine. So I can answer, Joe, if you're there, Joe, I can do, if I have the 3 minutes, can I do my videos?
Absolutely.
Okay. Holy mackerel. I didn't know if anybody was even listening. Okay, so let's take me a second here. Okay. Do you see the videos now? Do you see the observatories on the road?
No, I just see.
No, you don't.
Slideshow
Oh.
says 3-minute video.
Okay, okay. All right. Okay, I have to do a new share.
Yeah, Bill, do your videos have any sound in them?
No, there's no sound.
Okay, let's do a new share will work.
Do you see my screen with the little video icons?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So then I think I do this and I see this. You see the videos now?
Oh, it's just the screen with the icons of the videos. Explore.
Okay. Geez, how many ways? Okay. What am I doing wrong here?
So stop your share.
Stop my share. Okay,
Yeah,
you're right.
Stop the share. Go ahead and launch the video and then share the video once it's open.
Easier said than done, Joe.
Yeah, you need to, if you start them and then stop them, put it back at the beginning, and then you kind of select the first one you want.
I'm getting close. I'm getting close, and now I'm going to share my screen.
You can always share the entire screen too. So that's
see the observatories on the road.
There we go. Yes.
All right, I'm going to hit play now. So stand back. Okay.
Hey, Steve, I think we're above the clouds. We're about 7,000 to 8,000 feet. We went through the fog and the clouds, and now we got clear sky. We're on the way to the summit.
So there's the caldera and all the Mars rock.
Okay, walking up a hill here. Get a little view. Whoa.
Here on one part of the summit, looking down at the other part of the summit.
And up at the lookout point. And then over there is the actual observatories we'll be going to in a little while. And there's not much oxygen up here.
I'm feeling the oxygen deprivation.
We're almost at the summit now.
If you park there, you get arrested.
Okay, they're opening up the clamshell dome. Yeah, this is just one scope of a worldwide group of scopes, and a very unique dome. That's who it is. And you can see the secondary mirror up on top. And I guess that means they're open for business. And we get to set up our amateur scopes here.
I mean, you know, they were obviously in shock.
You can
Yes.
see the telescope rotating now,
The little girls and everything.
all done
Poor Dan,
remotely.
he figures out what happened. He's just going to blame himself. You know that. He's not going to be able to go on. But, oh, I sure hope he gets
I think it's a great opportunity for
Yes.
students.
I mean, he might be disabled for life. This is the Falk Telescope North.
If you look close, you
part
can
of
see
the
it's
Los
rotating again.
Angeles Observatory Global Telescope Network. And so kids from around the world can operate it from their classroom during the day.
Remotely.
Yes, from their computers in their classrooms, and they schedule time on it with J.D. Armstrong right here in Hawaii.
I was hypnotized by it. And I believe that's it for my videos. So that's it for me. I am open for questions. Can you still hear me, Joe?
I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, I am open for questions for at least a couple of hours.
All right.
Whatever.
We have at least one question come in. Peggy asked a question. Peggy, do you want to come off mute and ask, or?
Yeah, so I was able to go to Mauna Kea and see those telescopes a couple years ago. And of course, at that time, the native Hawaiians were protesting the building of a new telescope up there, and they were blocking the roads. So I just wondered if there's the same situation on Maui. Is that sacred ground? It seems like every mountain or volcano is a sacred place, and the natives just don't want telescopes up there.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. My son lived there for a couple of years. I never heard word one about a problem on Maui. And I know what you're saying, that there was a lot of problems on Mauna Kea, but no problems on Maui. And you got the Department of Defense on Maui, and on Mauna Kea, you just had a bunch of wacko astronomers. You know those people. And so it's a different audience, and that might have had something to do with it. I don't know. So, but no problems on Maui. And the amateurs doing construction when I was there, and they didn't have any problem either.
So have you heard where I think that was the 10-meter telescope they were going to put on Mauna Kea? Have they decided where to put it now? Has anybody heard that?
The last I heard, and it's been a while, in the pandemic, everything stopped, period. But the last I heard, the official word was everything was good. Everything was a go.
Oh, really?
But that doesn't mean that the people who were complaining agreed with it. That was the official word. But that when the government agreed, maybe not. So, but that was the official word. Now, but because the pandemic, everything is stopped, probably construction stopped. So I believe tune in at 11 and we'll find out what really happens. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd heard the 30-meter telescope is not scheduled to resume construction until summer of this year. So
until when, Joe?
summer of this year, summer of 2020.
Summer of this year. Well, that would be a minor miracle if it did.
I agreed. Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
the latest update that I've seen.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay.
All right. What other questions do we have? You want to ask a question of Bill? Go ahead and come off mute and ask your question.
In case you're wondering, I didn't do any hard time in the Maui prison.
I got another question.
Yes.
That clamshell observatory, where it opens like a clamshell, that seems pretty cool, because then the telescope has a very wide view that can look in any direction. But it seems like it would also not protect the telescope if there were high winds.
Well, okay, I hear you. I've never seen one like that before. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they used that technique. That part of the reason for using that technique was because it had to be automated, and you know, a conventional dome might be tricky. I mean, I know lots of people who got domes, and frankly, there's lots of problems with them, mechanical problems, right? And maybe somebody said, well, if you do this clamshell, you tend to eliminate this problem and that problem. But do they, but is the wind a problem or the other problems? One of the things that came to my mind is it watertight? Okay, but maybe if you're above the clouds all the time, water tends not to be a problem. I'm not so sure, you know, I don't know. How often do they have to fix that? I don't know. But you know, but then nobody's ever there to see if they got a wind problem or a water problem. You know, remote is nice, but then again, you know, there's nobody there to check for trouble. You know, God bless them. I hope it works fine for them.
Any other questions?
So when is the Astronomy Club going to sponsor a trip there?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, Joe, when?
We're working on a $50 million grant right now.
Okay.
Hawaii. Don't hold your breath, though.
Okay. That's a great idea, though, Peggy.
That is a great idea. Let's bring that up to our field trip and observing team. So, absolutely.
Oh, by the way, call the Astronomy Club. If you get any thought, call that Astronomy Club ahead of time. They were so fantastic. They're great folks. And again, they do tours for money, but they were awfully nice hosts.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, how many more observatories have you been to that we haven't covered yet, Bill? I love these.
Oh, you know, I got this close to going to the Vatican Observatory in Rome, and I got family in Italy, and I still hope to make that one. So I can't cover that at this point because I didn't make it. Which ones I haven't covered? I did the Lick Observatory, didn't I?
Yeah, you may be getting toward the end, but I was just wondering if there's any. We did Lick, Mauna Kea. I think you did.
I did Mauna Kea and I did Palomar.
England, you did.
Greenwich, yeah.
Well, take a look at your list, and we'll get you on the schedule again.
I'll have my people call your people.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to thank Bill for another one of his great talks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And Debbie, thank you again for everything that you do to help put on these presentations.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, and for those of us out here in West Texas, we're just going to take the covers off of our scopes and enjoy a night under some dark skies. And for those of you who aren't here, hopefully you'll be able to take your telescopes out as well, wherever you are, and enjoy some of the weather that we've been having here. So
may the bug spray be with you.
Yes, I found a tick on my leg earlier, just crawling up, and I was able to flick it off before it started to burn. So, but again, thanks, Bill. Tomorrow we have our general meeting for May. So if you haven't registered for that, take a look at some of the emails I've sent out. If you don't have the emails, you can go to the astronomyhouston.org website and find the registration link. Don Selly will be our guest speaker, and he'll be talking about astrophotography again, always a hot topic with everybody. And I'll be broadcasting again live from the X-Bar Ranch here in El Dorado, Texas. So,
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Anything new on getting some of our old presentations on YouTube?
I haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet. So we'll see what we can do. So they are still accessible to members. But for those who are, I
got people in other cities and other clubs who are asking to see my old presentations. So
you know, if they joined HAS, then they'd have access to them.
How did I know you were going to say that? I'm just a
always
guess.
a promoter, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that, Bill. We'll talk afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. All right, everybody. I hope to see you all tomorrow at 7 o'clock again on Friday. If you guys liked the idea of opening up the meeting beforehand and having that breakout room to chit chat, it sounded like that was a pretty fun thing for a few folks. We'll go ahead and do that again tomorrow and see where it goes from there. But If you have any questions, you can always email me, info@astronomyhouston.org. And, if you have questions for Bill, send them to me and I'll forward those over to Bill.
Yes, okay, I can answer questions.
Absolutely. So thanks, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.